Hey everybody! Welcome, welcome, welcome. Looks like I got a good number of people here. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me. Um, seeing the chat here. Hi Annie. Hi Delania. Hi Mary. If you all could just pop in, somebody let me know if they can hear me okay or not. That would be great. Hi Mary Polanco. So happy you could join us. It looks like everything's going. Okay, Mary said she can hear me. Yay! Okay, good. You never know. Like, it's always so like, and then there's like this delay on the back end, so you're never sure. So awesome, awesome, awesome. So, let's see, there's Marie and Karen and Delenia and Cheryl and Annie and Mary. So, yeah, thank you guys for joining me. I know this is a little short notice in some ways, but then like rescheduling with being sick and everything. So, yeah, I had a cold and then that developed into a sinus infection. And when I thought I was like completely over the cold and feeling fine. So, yeah, it happens. So, let's see. Hi, Miss Wills. Yeah, so yeah, good morning, good afternoon. Lots of Marys on here today. And again, like I always just love seeing where everybody's from. We've got people from all over, it looks like. We even have Marie from France join us, which is so fun. Yeah, so are you guys cold or warm where you are? Here, we're like under like a cold weather advisory. Like we're not getting really any snow. We had like a little flurry, but it was really, it's just like freezing cold. Like the wind chills are down into the teens. So yeah, it's definitely winter. And then of course, Christmas is going to be here soon, which is what we're going to be, at least for me, I'm going to be doing some Christmas crafting here with you guys today. So, you got 83 degrees as well. That is not fair. Yeah, I'm just a little bit jealous, but it is what it is, I guess, depending on where you live. You are due the 80 degrees being in SoCal. So awesome, awesome. So yeah, I guess we probably may as well just get on into it, don't you think? And get started. It doesn't really feel like Christmas yet either, even though I've like done all the things. I don't know how I can make it any louder, Mary. I would recommend that you go in. There's a setting in YouTube that you can go into and turn up the volume actually on YouTube as well as on your computer. So just make sure that both of those are turned up, because I can't make your computer louder. So that's all I can recommend for you to try to do. So yeah, hopefully that helps a little bit. Let's see, cold, just above freezing. Yeah, no, we've been down in the 20s last night, the teens last night. So, and then it's really windy, so it's, yeah, definitely got it cold out there today. But yeah. So, all right. Well, I am gonna flip over, and we'll get going here. I don't expect a huge crowd today. So, but if you are like just joining me, you can watch this on replay. This is going to be a live over, just on my YouTube channel. So you can just pop in there and watch this anytime that you would like. So while I'm going along through things, like if you guys have questions, because it is just me here, just make sure, like maybe put it in capital letters or something, so I don't miss it. But hopefully, I try to explain things really well, so hopefully that will limit questions. But if you have one, please ask it, because you probably are not the only one that has a question. So yeah. The first thing I wanted to do, I've got some of my things here together, but one of the things we're going to be doing is like a gift box. And we're not making a box, but I probably should have told you to grab like a little gift box. But I'm going to go through how you can kind of create like a wrap to put around a gift box. And these are just like some craft gift boxes that I picked up at the craft store. You can get them at the dollar store or wherever. And I'm going to use these like for some gifts. And then I've also got my tags. And so you're going to just want to make sure you've got some tags to work on. And then you're also going to want some paper. And I had somebody ask me this, and I just wanted to clarify. I said like having the paper match your tags, and it was really like if you were going to put the tag with the gift wrap, that you kind of have a similar color background so that they coordinated. Is that necessary? Absolutely not. But that was just kind of my thinking with things. And I didn't mention this, but I would recommend if you can grab like some kind of cheap paper. This is just like printer paper. And we're going to create a template. And I'm going to kind of show you how you can make a template to use to create the wrap for your box. So you kind of like practice on some cheap paper before you switch over to your good or better paper. So I've got that here. And then like a pencil or something and a ruler would be helpful. And then you're going to need a paper trimmer and like a scoreboard. So you don't have to have a scoreboard, but it does help. And then, yeah, then we've got our stamps and stencils and some inks. I'm going to be working with the Distress Oxide Inks. And I've got an archival ink, just a permanent ink, but just any kind of black ink will work. And I've got a little blending brush and a water brush. And whatever you want to stamp on, I've got some stamping blocks here. You can use a stamping platform, whatever you're comfortable with. And then I have a few other little things like off to the side that, depending on how we're moving along here, I will get into a little bit here. So yeah, so let's start off with making our little box wrap. So if you don't have a box with you to do this with, you can just kind of get the gist of it while I'm doing things here. So I kind of like made myself, this is what I'm talking about, we're going to make like some templates to use for the boxes. So first off, let's just kind of get an idea of how like you would do it for any box. And you're just going to take some measurements on the box here. So like this box is about 5.5 inches, maybe a little bit more like 5 7/8. So you're going to want to cut your paper kind of close to that amount, whatever the width of your box is. So I'm going to go with 5 7/8. And so then you can just kind of come over and measure that on your paper if you want, or you can, lay your box on there and kind of like maybe put the lid down, because usually the lid's a little bit bigger than the bottom, and then just make a little mark there. And then you know where to cut this, because you want to think about, we're going to use the paper to wrap around the box like that. And then next we're going to measure, how thick is the box. These little boxes are about 1 inch. So you're going to want to keep that in mind. So you could just, maybe make a note of that 1 inch amount. And then what is the width this way. And this is like 3 3/4. And I usually like to add at least another little 1/8 of an inch onto that. So you have enough room when you're creating the folds that it's not too tight. And then again, you're going to have another 1 inch on that side. So let me grab my paper trimmer here. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to cut the width here of the box. So this width here, which was that 5 7/8. So get that lined up, but then I can also use my little mark on there. So then we have that, and then you don't really need that anymore. You're gonna just grab your scoreboard next. And I like to, like, I know this piece is plenty big enough to wrap around my box, and if you wanted, you know, you could just wrap it around here and rub your finger around it and call it done. But I kind of found that I kind of liked this method to just create a nice, like, clean little wrap. And you're gonna want some papers to like fold underneath the bottom that will like overlap to help hold it together with a little adhesive. So I'm gonna score this at 2 inches just to give me a little bit of a piece to wrap underneath the bottom there. And then the next measurement we want to think about, so that's our bottom. Now we've got this, the width here of the box, and that was 1 inch. So we're going to score the box, or score here at another inch. So this is the bottom, and then that's going to wrap up around. And now we're going to do the width on the top here. And if you remember, I had 3 3¾ So go over, my little scoreboard here is kind of small, but so we've got 3 3/4, and then like I said, I like to add at least another 1/8 of an inch on there. So I'm going to scoot this over and give myself another, let's just fold this here so we can get it in there a little better. So we're going to do 3 3/4 plus another 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to scoot this out just a tiny little bit, making adjustments for my scoreboard here. And that should give me enough there. So like I said, that's the piece that goes across the top there. And then now we're going to need to go back down on this side. So you're going to, that another inch there. And then now we've got the part that folds underneath the bottom to overlap. So, and you can just fold that along those score lines. And you have a template for your box. So like if you were wanting to, you know, if you had several of these that were the same size, then you're just going to be able to take this and replicate making those wraps, like getting the cut size and the folds and everything where you need it. So yeah, so hopefully that makes sense, hopefully. So, so that's just how you would do it for this larger box. And this is just kind of a little like template that I wrote out. So, so it's 2 inches, then the 1 inch. So this is the box height, and then the width of whatever the box is plus 1/8 inch, and then another 1 inch for whatever that width is. And then this flap you can just trim off if needed. So if you know this one, you're not going to have a ton of overlap, so that'll work out perfectly there. All right, and then we're also going to do one for this box, this like a smaller box, and this is the one I'm going to do the stamping on for the class because it'll just go a little bit quicker that way. But for this one, I did the same thing where I did a kind of a 2 inch, and then this box is also 1 inch. So we've got that under the bottom. Then we've got our 1 inch, and then I measured the width of the box there plus 1/8 of an inch, then another 1 inch, and then I had excess here, and this actually went over a little farther. So then I just used, you know, you can use your scissors or your paper trimmer and just trim off that excess so that you just have enough that kind of folds over, and then you can add some adhesive there, and your gift box is wrapped. So hopefully that makes sense. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to continue on. So with this done here, now what we're going to do is take a piece of our good paper, and I'm going to take my template for this box and cut this paper and score it so that I have my wrap. And this paper for this box was 3 3/4. So I'm going to grab my paper trimmer here and just line this up on the ruler here at 3 3/4 and just chomp that off. And now we have the piece that will be the wrap for our box. Now, at this point, I like to do the stamping and then do the scoring, just because when you try to stamp over the score lines, the stamping just isn't as smooth. So if you know what your template size is and you know what the length and the width are, then you're going to just want to cut that paper that amount too. So like for this box, the full wrap I'm going to need is 8 3/4. So we're going to trim this off at 8 3/4. So now we have this piece ready to go. All right. Get my paper trimmer out of the way here. And so at this point, we're going to put the scoreboard to the side. We'll come back to that after we do our stamping. So now we're going to get into the fun stuff. So I want you to grab some of your tags and your paper wrap, and now we're going to need our stamps. And I'm working with this stamp stencil set that's they're part of what they call them, like I don't know, kind of a mixed media set almost, but I love that it's got the stamps and 2 stencil designs in there. So it's kind of a fun way to get into stamping and stenciling if you've not done much of that. But a lot of these sets are based off of other stamp sets that are the rubber stamps, and these are the clear stamps. And they're usually different sizes. So like you can see with the Santa, the images on here are from this set, but it's not all of them, but some of them. And then they've just made it just a tiny little bit smaller. So if you only have the rubber stamp set and not this one, feel free to use whichever one you have. And then with the stencil, I'm going to be using this design, but this is a design that's like, there's another stencil that Tim has that's this design, but the full amount all on there. I just don't happen to have this design in that. I need to add that to my collection. But, and the same thing for these stars. So you can use any stamps or stencil that you have for this. And we're going to grab our oxide inks. And I've got the little mini oxides here. And for the technique that I'm going to be doing for the stamping, this just, I don't know, it's just a little bit easier with these smaller ink pads. So, this black mat, I feel like the stamp gets lost a little bit. I don't know if that's better on the white to see what I'm doing here. But I've got just a red, green, brown, and then just a neutral here with old paper. So I'm using lumberjack plaid, peeled paint, and gathered twigs for my stamping here. And what I like to do with these little ink pads that's a little bit more challenging with the bigger ones, but you can do it, is to apply the ink to just parts of the stamp, so not the whole image. So I'm just going to start putting a little ink here and there on the stamp, like where his suit is. So I'm kind kind of have like, you know, you could kind of refer to the stamp image if you want to. And as you're adding ink onto the image on the stamp, it gets a little bit easier to see. And if you get ink somewhere that you don't want it, you can always just wipe it off if need be. So I guess I'm just kind of trying to get, and I'm just using like the little corner there and just tapping that in. And then we're going to do the same thing with the brown ink on his boots. And if you happen to get a little bit of ink mixed in, you know, because you tap into it, it's fine. It'll wipe off, so don't worry about contaminating your ink pads or anything like that. So now I'm just gonna added the green there onto the sack, and I just realized this is sack over here too, so I'm gonna wipe a little bit of that red off and tap some of the green over there. And now we're going to take one of our tags, and you could just stamp this straight on there if you want. I'm going to give it a little spritz with some water, just using my Distress sprayer. I'm going to just lightly mist this. I'm not going to do it on camera here because otherwise it's going to get everything wet. But just a light mist. So you're going to hold the sprayer kind of back away from it and give it a quick spritz. All right. And then from here, just going to stamp that onto my background or my tag here. And there we go. So you could spray this again and probably get one more stamped image off of that. So I'm going to give it another little light mist, and we'll do one more stamp just so you can kind of see. Do that second generation stamping, and there you go. So either one is good as far as I'm concerned. In some ways I kind of like this one a little bit better, but yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing here. Let me clean off this stamp. I'm just wiping that off with a little water and a rag here. And then we can just set these to the side and let that dry. And I'm gonna grab some more tags here. So, all right, so now I'm gonna grab this little reindeer. If you've got another image that you wanna play with, like if you're working with the actual rubber stamps, you could do the, I don't know, there's a little holly thing on there that's kind of cute. So, but I've just got this little reindeer here, and I'm gonna ink him up with some of the gathered twigs. And I kind of like to keep tapping. Like when you first start putting the ink on the stamps, you might see like little lines, and you just want to kind of keep tapping until you get that kind of blended out so you don't have those harsh lines. And then again, like if you wanted to just stamp this and get a really nice crisp image, you could. So I'm just going to kind of show you the differences here. So that's with no water. Just get a really nice kind of crisp stamped image there. See those little lines? I don't know if you're seeing them. I just keep tapping until those are gone. And now I'm going to spritz this with some water. And let's grab another tag here. And now I'm going to stamp this one with the water sprayed on it. There you go. And then you could stamp this again like we did with the Santa. So there's a couple options, and if you decide, oh, I don't really like that clean look, you know, kind of pick which way. Maybe you like this better, you prefer that better. That's totally fine. And again, we just kind of set those to the side, let them dry. And then we're going to do our little wreath. And for this one, You might notice on the design there's these little berries, and I'm going to show you a little trick to add color to those after we ink this up. So again, you're going to just kind of take that little corner and tap the green around on the wreath. And you know, if you wanted to add more like uniqueness to this, you could mix colors. Like if you wanted to put a little bit of like forest moss or rustic wilderness with this to give it a little bit of contrast, you could do that. That would be pretty. I'm going to take the lumberjack plaid, but my thought on this was just trying to do something that's a little bit quick-ish and not going to take a lot of time. And I'm just going back in there. There's a couple, got a little bit of red onto the wreath, and I want to put the green back on there. But if you do get some ink, there's just a little bit there, you can just tap it, kind of clean it off onto like scrap paper or something. And now we're going to take our wreath. And again, if you want to stamp it without the water, you can. I'm going to give it a light mist. And stamp that onto my paper, onto my tag here. And then we're going to set that to the side and let that dry, okay? And I'll explain why in a minute. And then next, oh, there it is. We're going to do the stamping on this piece. So I used the little wreath on here, but you could do any of the images. Like if you wanted to do the Santa, you could. Or the deer. The deer would be even faster because it's just one color. But basically, you're just going to ink up your wreath and ink up the bow. And then give that a little mist. And then I'm going to just kind of, let's just start down here on one end. There we are. I'll just stamp that. And then if you want to give that another little spritz, remember, like part of this was hanging off there, so you're not going to have a full image of that. But let's go there. But you should be able to get a couple stamps like off of that one inking, so that it, you know, kind of looks like it all goes together. And we're just going to repeat that. And you can play around with, you know, rotating the wreath. And you're basically just making your own little repeat pattern here. There we are. And at some point, like if your block is getting really wet, I do recommend that you kind of wipe off some of the water so that it's not dripping on things. We're just going to keep going there. Is everybody doing okay? And see, stamp that one there. Give it another little spritz, and then we'll stamp one here. Yeah, we'll just keep going. I'm going to do this whole piece here just to kind of show you what it looks like finished. And I try to kind of keep rotating the image so that they're not all going the same direction. Just kind of breaks it up and, I don't know, makes it a little more interesting, I think. Plus, I love making repeat patterns. I don't know if how many of you might know this, but I used to do graphic design work for a paper company called Jelly Bean Soup. And I helped with designing the papers and stamps and dies and stickers and all the things that we did. And one of my favorite things, though, is always making the repeat patterns that were on the pattern paper that we had. There we go. Oh, thanks, Mary. Yeah, I was looking at the comments here. Marie said, I love that you don't get the contour lines like when you color in. Yeah, like, because like when you stamp these, like if you have ever, you know, some of these images, you just stamp them in like black ink or whatever and then color them in, you know, that's certainly an option. But I don't know, I feel like this just adds a, I don't know, a little, well, it's a little faster than coloring is. But it adds a nice, you know, pop of color. Let's go. There we are. We're almost getting it filled in here, aren't we? Maybe one more. Do this one. So you could see, like, you know, if you're needing some last minute gift wrap and stuff, this would be a very quick, easy way to just make some custom pieces to use. Here we are. So, and then obviously, like, depending on what size your paper is, you know, you would just keep going. Like if you were doing that bigger box, you just would be making a bigger piece. And there we have it. So I had mentioned, though, about the berries. And it's not something that you need on there, but I'm going to show you how it just adds a nice little touch. So you're going to take your little ink pad and you smush it on a craft mat or some kind of surface that you can pick it up off of. And I've got a water brush, but you could just grab like a paintbrush with a little bit of water. And you're going to pick up that ink and then just touch it down where the little berries are on the image. So, and if they're like, if you can't see them because your image got a little bit runny, just add berries here and there. They don't have to be in the exact same spot as what's on the stamped image. It's gonna, the idea is that you're just adding the color to it. So, but you do want this dry before you start trying to add the berries. So I'm gonna dry this one a little bit here before I add the berries to it. All right, I want to know who all is following along with me and who else is just like doing something else. Is there anybody else just like doing some other Christmas crafting? Or is everybody done with all their Christmas crafting? I know I'm kind of reaching my end with it. I'm like just trying to get all the last minute little things done. And this is one of them. I've got a couple nieces that I'm giving just small gifts to because we're traveling for Christmas, so I'm not wanting to have to like take a big gifts with me, so I'm doing a little jewelry and like gift cards, and so these little wraps and stuff are going to be just perfect for that. So, like I said, so some of these, like, you know, that one, it was a little bit blurry, so it's harder to see where I need to put a berry necessarily, but just pick a spot and then go down a little and just kind of spread them around. They don't have to be perfect. The idea is just to add that little touch of color here and there. I mean, is anybody ready for Christmas? Done Christmas crafting, just watching. Gift wrapping today after the live end. That's nice, Delania. Yeah, I've got to get my Christmas wrapping done as well. So got wrapping paper the other day for like the bigger gifts. So this is actually helping me get some of those little ones I was just mentioning done by getting these wraps made. Some tags. Oh, Marie said she stopped to watch, but she was coloring images in with the Distress pencils. Oh, that's always fun. Yeah, that's another option too. You can, if you've seen Tim demo where he takes the watercolor pencils and a little bit of water on them and uses that to color the stamps and then stamp with them, and gives you kind of a similar kind of watercolory effect. So there's so many ways to play and create and add color, and I think sometimes it's just finding the ways that you like to do it. I personally, I don't know, I like mixing it up and trying different things here and there and finding, I don't know, different ways of using what I already have as well, though. And I don't know, I think we all too also kind of have our favorite things. I probably like my ink pads. Like I prefer playing with my ink pads over some of the other mediums, but the watercolor pencils are super fun too. So yeah, it just depends on kind of what kind of mood I'm in. Well, you can see, I mean, this is, you know, maybe be a little more tedious than you would want it to be, but that said, you wouldn't have to add the little berries. You can leave that off. And then that would make it a lot faster if you're just needing to get a little wrap done. All right, did we get them all? I think so. A little more there. All right, so there's that. And let's clean this off here. And next, I want to just give this a little dry, just to make sure all of my pieces are dry here before we go on to the next step here. And I think what I want to do next is you're going to want your stencil, whatever stencil you're going to be using, and just kind of some kind of stencil brush. And then I've got the old paper oxide. You want a really light color for this because we're going to be doing kind of filling in that white space, especially on these tags. So where did I put my stuff? Oh, there we are. Had all my stuff laid out, ready to go. So I'm going to grab my sticky grip mate here and use that to just kind of help hold things down while I'm working. And now what I like about these stencils and these sets is, like I said, they're pretty reasonably priced, and it's a great way for somebody that, you know, is just getting started with stencils and stamps. I think I mentioned that already. And then with having these two patterns on here, these are repeat patterns. So I'm just kind of like laying this on top here, kind of centering it. And then I'm going to take my old paper and a little blending brush and just rub that around on there. And then what I'm looking to do is add color where I didn't stamp. So we're not going to ink over where we stamped. I'll just kind of put some ink around the outside edge here. Now, you might want to be careful about getting ink down here. So if you want to use like a little bit of cement tape just to kind of protect the paper. Let's add more ink if you need it. And now we're going to peel that up. You can see what we have there. And then you're just going to slide this down and line it back up with the pattern that you just applied on, the upper part of the tag. And then now we're just going to ink down here a little on the lower end. Peel that up. And if you want to get a little more like closer to it, like I wanted to add a little bit of the stencil right there, do that. And then you also might want to put a little piece of the like mint tape on the upper part of the stencil so that you don't accidentally ink through that and get that design on your paper if you're not, depending on which one you're using. So, and I'm not doing the whole thing, and I'll show you that here in a few minutes, but I'm not going to do the whole tag. So basically you're just going to repeat that process on all the other tags. So just position it down. And I kind of like to center it. I've been putting the center of the design right there in the middle, like in the hole of my tag. So that kind of helps me see where to center it. Oh, somebody asked me about my blending brush. These are new for me. These are Ulta new and they're flat. And I just am finding that with the flat brushes, I feel like I'm getting, I don't know, I just like the ink coverage better for some reason. Maybe it's a personal preference, but I just feel like the ink goes on a little better than the ones that are kind of more rounded. So I've got a few of these. I don't have a whole bunch of them, but I just have a few, and I've been kind of playing around with them before I decide if I'm going to fully invest in more of them, because they're not cheap. So I'm going to be slowly adding them to my stash if they continue to perform like I'm thinking, because I don't need one for like every ink color, but I just like to have one for each color family. So this like I would have a red and a green and a pink and an orange and a yellow and a purple and a blue, and then I would have brown, and then sometimes I'll have a gray, or one that I can do like the neutral, like light colors like this old paper with. And yeah, so that's it. And they come in different sizes. So they've got, I think they've got bigger ones than these, but I really was looking for small ones to use with my stencils. I've got the bigger brushes to do, like if I was just wanting to like put the color through this whole big stencil and not really trying to control where I placed it, then I would just use one of my bigger brushes because it's going to put it on a little bit faster. But for this, I like having something a little bit smaller that I can kind of control the placement of the ink. And like I said, they come in different sizes. They've got these, and then they've got two more smaller ones. And so if you're really into any of those, some companies have been coming out with like the coordinated stencils that go with their stamps and dies, and there's like little smaller details in that. Those are really nice. Those smaller brushes are really nice to be able to really get color right exactly where you want it, especially if you've got like a little detailed stencils. So So yeah, I'll just show you the other two sizes so you can see what I'm talking about. So these are the three sizes I have, and these come in a pack of 4, and then these come in a pack of 4, but there's like 2 of each of this. So there's 2 of this and 2 of this, and then I wish they would sell a pack of just these and a pack of just these, but they don't. So, but you can see like how tiny that is. Like you could really get in there and just put ink right on that like center spot if you wanted. So yeah, that is what I am loving there. So, and so then, yeah, we would just do that for all the tags, and then we can also do that for our box here. Now this gets a little bit trickier, but I'm not going to worry about stenciling the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of go down the center of it. And again, just get a little bit of ink here. Now this time, I wouldn't mind having a smaller stencil or brush, so I'm going to clean off this brush here that I'd use on a green. Old paper is kind of a green color. And just ink in here in between. If you're not sure, just pick it up. You're not going to hurt anything if you get ink somewhere that you weren't planning on either. It's not going to ruin anything. But if you wanted to go all the way over to the edge, all you would need to do is just shift the stencil. So, and just, just line it up and shift it over that way. And then you could ink here and ink there. Let's see, and then we're going to slide this down, line up. Just keep going there. Now, does anybody have any kind of their favorite kind of blending brushes that they like to use? I said I'm kind of, Simon Hurley came out with some flatter, large brushes that I've tried, and I really like those as well. So, so yeah, I know it's like, oh, they keep coming out with new things, and then won't they ever stop? But there's always new people coming into this hobby. So, sometimes things that, we've been using for a long time, it's completely new to somebody that hasn't been doing this. And, if all you have are the old ones, they still work. So there's no need to feel like you have to always be getting all the new things. But because of what I do with sharing with you guys, I do like to kind of try to keep up with some of the new stuff, just so I can share my thoughts on it with you. And so I'm glad Kelly asked about the brushes. So I'm just kind of giving you my honest opinion about them. I really like them. So yeah, one more little scoot down here. Little one again. All right, so there we go. So like I said, if you wanted to, now that I'm looking at this, I kind of want to add the ink all the way over. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that. I said, I want to be able to use this, so I'm going to finish it off here. And sometimes trying to line it back up, it takes a minute to find where you were. There. this one. There we are. Almost could go. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay. So if you're coming along with me here, you should have your wrap done and some tags. I'm gonna wipe off my little mat here. Give you guys a minute to kind of catch up with me here, Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. Yes, I am feeling 100% back to normal. Thank goodness. I wasn't like sick the entire time since then, but when I first, at least since when I first originally scheduled this, but had other things going on, and just with my schedule wasn't able to do this until today. So which it's a little bit later than I was hoping, because earlier would have given you guys more time to do some of this, but it's okay. We can just play and have fun and spend time together crafting, which is really all I wanted to do. All right. So the next couple things we need to do, we need to add the sentiments, and we also need to add some little splatters. So, well, let's just do, let me do this stamping here. Now I'm pulling out my stamping platform, and that's just because unless I'm going for an imperfect image, which I didn't care about when I was stamping this, I don't mind stamping with a block. But if I'm going to try to stamp something and I want it to be like perfect, like with the sentiment, I'm going to use my stamping platform. So yeah, so now we're just going to grab one of the sentiments, and I've got my tag in place here in my platform, and I'm just going to pick that up. And I pulled out, I'm going to pull out my other ink too. So the VersaFine Clair and Archival ink, like these are my two favorite permanent inks, and I like them for different things. If I'm stamping with clear stamps, I typically will go to the VersaFine Clair, and that's because it's a pigment ink and it won't stain the clear stamps. Whereas the Archival ink, it's an oil-based ink and it will stain them. And I don't mind that on my rubber stamps, but I don't like it so much on the clear stamps. And that's just personal preference. It's not damaging the stamps in any way if you use Archival ink on the clear stamps. So just do know that it's not going to hurt anything. But then that said, so like for real fine detailed stamping, this is perfect for that. But it can also be more than I want sometimes if I'm going to do some coloring. So just kind of depends on what I'm doing there. But because I do find sometimes it will bleed a little bit. I don't know. But you can see how crisp and sharp that is on there. And on this next one, I'll use Archival ink. It's not going to be the end of the world. And let's switch and do a different sentiment here. Let's grab this Merry and Bright, and I'm just going to center it, putting it below his face so it's not covering up Santa's face, and just center it on there. And so this one, like that ink is still wet because it's a pigment ink, so that's going to take a little bit to dry. And we're going to do the Archival ink. And just show you a little comparison between the two of them here. And I'm going to get my stamp wet real quick and clean it off real quick. That will kind of help if you can clean it off before it dries on the stamp. And there you can see. There's not like a ton of difference. This is just like maybe a little bit more darker black, but and then this is a little bit slower to dry than like other inks might be, but this one here, the pigment ink, the VersaFine, is going to be the slowest. So either way, you want to set these to the side, give them a few minutes to dry, or you can heat it with your heat tool, whichever one you want there. And let's do one more. Have a wonderful holiday. And this one, I'll do that VersaFine Clair again. Make sure my paper, because it moved a little bit there when I picked up the stamp. There we are. And then, yeah, then I'm going to heat these with my heat tool just real quick so I don't smear that. What do I think about the Misty Light? Is that the new thing that they just came out with? If that's what you're referring to, because I'm not familiar with it, I don't have an opinion on it because I haven't had a chance to play with it or get my hands on it. So, but if anyone else has a thought on it or has tried it out, feel free to share. I've been a little bit curious about it. Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I watched a video on it, but I wasn't 100% paying attention, and I need to go back and watch it a little bit with a little more attention to the details on it all. So, these dry. Yeah, see, like that ink is still wet on there. And also too, like depending on what kind of paper you're working on, this paper, these tags are, it's a very smooth paper, so the ink doesn't seem to like soak into it super fast. So yeah, it's still wet. Okay, close enough though. All right, now so the last thing I want to do here is we're going to add some splatters, and I always like to work in my splat box when I'm doing splatters, just so I don't have to clean them up off of my craft space. So I'll lay a couple of them in there, and I'm going to grab my peeled paint, and I'm going to smush that onto my little craft block here. You could smush this onto a craft mat too, and give that a little spritz of water. And I want to grab a brush and just kind of mix that together. And then I'm just going to tap and add some splatters. So you can add as many or as little as you like. Sometimes I kind of like to rotate the paper around so that I'm getting splatters in different directions. Like if you don't want splatters on part of your image, like maybe you don't want splatters over Santa's face, just, you know, you could hold your finger over it, get a little splatter on your fingers, but you could also put a little piece of paper over it, I guess. And then if you wanted to add splatters to your wrap, you can do that too. You could also do splatters like with any of the spritzes or mica stains if you wanted to add like a little shimmery spritz or shimmery splatters to things. You can do that. Oh, let's see. Mary was adding in on the Misty Light. I'd have to try it to have an opinion. Yeah, that's kind of where I am. But at first glance, it looks like you need all the parts of it, which is the same price as a regular Misty or more. I don't remember paying attention. Like I said, Mary, I did not pay super great attention to all the details with it. So, but yeah, I do seem to think that maybe you have to, like there's different, pieces that you need to have to use it. So yeah, we need to do some investigating. Because I love my Misty. I mean, I've been using it for many, 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 many years. When I first started getting into card making, I was at a crop and someone there had one and I tried it and I was immediately sold. Like, I had to have one. I had always struggled with stamping because, I don't know if it's just a patience thing, but I would always, not get it inked up all the way, or I would wiggle it or something and mess up it, and then I'd have to stamp everything over, and there's nothing worse than if you've been working on a card forever and then you go to stamp one last little thing and then you mess it up because, you didn't ink it properly or the paper slid or something. So, yeah, I love the Misty for helping me minimize some of that. So, all right. Well, oh, hi, Marisha. Thanks for joining me. Ah, it's so nice. Yeah, Mary and me and Marisha and Tiffany Solario had a super fun weekend last weekend. Mary hosted a holiday card making event that we all taught Christmas cards for, and it was so fun. But yes, I digress. All right, looks like Delinia said, looks like the Misty Light, the platform, and the magnets combo is about $100. Yeah, that's a little pricey, but it's an investment, it's a tool. So you have to look into what it does, and yeah, that, if you want to, I don't mind investing in tools that I'm going to use. So like I said, there are definitely reasons why that would be worth it, depending on what your needs are. All right, I am going to go back to our little wrap that we made, and I've got my little template, and now we're going to score the paper here. So I'm going to do the 2-inch and then the 1-inch, so we can fold those so those will wrap around our box like so. And now we need the width of the box. Line that up there, and write down my measurement. So right there. Some little fancy math here. All right. Slide that over just so I can put that into my 1-inch. So now I've got the 1-inch piece here. And I just fold that over. And then all you got to do is add your present and some adhesive and wrap that around, and you're ready to go. Put a little tag or bow or whatever on there, which that leads me to my next couple things I wanted to share, because this is basically all I'm going to be making here, but couple things. I'm all over the place right now. let's go back to like the string and stuff. So like on my photos that I shared of this is the twine that I use, the Doodlebug twine. I love this stuff and gonna need to get some more. But another thing you could do is to take like seam binding. So there used to be a place I would order this from, and Zipper Stop, and I think they've gone out of business. So this, I found this. You just need to make sure it's 100% rayon, and that will take the color. And then what I do with gloves on is I take like a Distress spray stain and just take a length of this, and I get a knot here. I also like to wear gloves when I'm doing this, and so just cut, take a big chunk of it out, cut it to the length you need or want, and then just spray it with some water and whatever spray color you want. I mean, if you want to use spray stains, if you wanted to do like a little shimmer to it, you could add some spritz or like some mica stain. Just make sure you shake these up really good. And then while it's wet, you just crinkle it up. And then I like to use my heat tool and dry that. And then once it's dry, then you've got that really pretty kind of vintage crinkle ribbon that you can add to like tie around your boxes. And, you could add that onto the tags if you wanted. And you might have noticed on my tags in the photo that the edges, there was like a decorative edge along here. And a couple ways you can do that. You could use some dies like these ones with this called vault edges. But I also got to thinking, totally old school. Does anybody remember these? I bet all of us have some of these, or did have some of these in our stash at one point. So I think any of these could work as well, and it would be a lot faster than putting a die on there. And so you could just figure out where you wanted to cut. So maybe you want to measure and say, oh, I want to cut off, at this length. Just maybe put a little pencil mark there, and then take your scissors. So kind of keep it straight-ish. And then just get a kind of a fun little decal edge along the bottom, or whatever shape you have. I didn't even realize I've got this one that's like a postage edge. So maybe I'll do that on this one here. See what that looks like. I haven't used these in forever, but as you can see, they still work quite lovely. I want to know who else still has some of these in their stash. Tell me I'm not the only one. Oh, Marisha's got them. I'm not sure the name, but the cool name, MR, says she's got them. And Kelly said, oh, my decal edge scissors, old school. They are so old school. And Miss Willis says she's got the whole set. Yep. This is all I have. I used to have way more of them. I think I did kind of like destash a little bit and got rid of all but like my favorite ones. But yeah, I've had them. Yeah, same thing. Had them for years, and like here we are. So if you've got dies or punches, even like there was punches back in the day too that would have cut these edges off. So lots of options for sure. Kathy says she's got 6 of them. Mary says she uses postage and decal all the time. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to leave these out on my craft desk and utilize them a little more regularly, because yeah, I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So, and then just add a little ribbon and, to and from on the back. If you've got a to and from stamp, you could, put that on the back there, I guess, if you'd like. And yeah, oh, one other thing I wanted to share. I was thinking about when I was doing these panels, gift bags. So like if you're not a gift box person, what you could do is take your paper and cut, like this is just the scrap from this box, but you know, cut a panel this size or slightly smaller than the size of the front of your gift bag and do the stamping on that and adhere that to the front of your bag, and then you've got a little custom gift bag. So you could, you know, you could even just do a little band of it. You wouldn't even have to do the whole big thing. Or that said too, like on these bags, you could even do the stamping on the bags if you wanted. Might get a little tricky on the seam part here, but yeah, so just some options. So that would be kind of fun to share with you. So, all right. Is there anything else? I can't think of anything else. So I think I'm gonna flip us back over here so you can see my face instead of my mess. So, oh, I'm glad you like that idea, Marie. Yeah, for some reason, like that's something I used to do, like with patterned paper. Like if you've got, which we all do, have lots of patterned paper. You could even just do some patterned paper on there too if you're really in a hurry. So yeah. All right. Well, that was fun. I hope you guys had fun and maybe learned a new thing or two here or there, or thought about some old stuff that you like our old school scissors, decorative scissors, bringing those back and pulling them out of the drawer or wherever you got them hiding. If they're not out on your craft desk, which mine are in a drawer, they were, and now I'm like, I'm gonna have to pull these out and keep them out where I can get to them a little bit easier. So yeah. Well, I really appreciate you guys joining me and spending some time with me. It looked like we had a pretty decent turnout, so I'm excited about that. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great holiday season, a great Christmas, a great New Year's. I don't have too much, I don't have any more videos planned for the remainder of the year. Just going to kind of take some time to spend with my family and do some traveling over the holidays. So I will be getting back to it though in the new year. And Kathy asked about schedule for next year. I'm not like Mary Polanco, who's so organized that she has like the whole year planned out already probably. But my next live class will be in February, and I'm really looking forward to that. That is going to be Stretch Your Stamps. So it's a continuation of the Stretch series that I did last year, where I did Stretch Your Die Cuts, Stretch Your Embossing Folders, and Stretch Your Stencils. This one's going to be Stretch Your Stamps, and that'll be in February. So look for information on that coming in January. I will be part of an event in January. Just can't share any information on that just yet, but there's definitely lots of stuff coming. There's lots of new releases that are coming that I can't wait to share with you guys, that are some new to me companies and or designers, I guess, really, not necessarily the companies, but the designers are new for me. So that'll be fun. And yeah, so definitely have plans to continue to share with you guys in the next year. So yeah, hope you guys will stay tuned and keep following along. Yeah, so I always appreciate your support, and yeah, can't thank you enough for that for sure. So yeah, so anyway, happy holidays and Merry Christmas to all of you. And if you have any questions or anything, always feel free to reach out to me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So anyway, all right guys, well thanks so much. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy New Year. Bye.